Hey, this is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and you are listening to It's Me Speaking to You with your host, Jeffrey Wilson.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of It's Me Speaking to You. I am, as always your ever faithful host, Mr. Jeffrey Wilson, coming to you live and direct from the gateway to the West, St. Louis, Missouri. And today, folks, it's going to be rather informative and pretty cool because this gentleman happens to be a former classmate of mine, going back to the before even high school, even like junior high. Very smart dude. He's going to shed a little bit of light on a few things that he's into. He's actually, help me and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. J. Jake, if you founded the Elite Health Systems, he is the owner of the Dr. J Wellness Center, and he studied health and science and physiology at the Palmer College of Chiropractic right there in good old Davenport, Iowa. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Mr. Dr. J Johannsen. What's up, brother?
Not a whole lot, Jeffrey. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic, as always. Every day above ground's a good day. I actually, oddly enough, started my day talking to 200-plus junior high school students here in the St. Louis area, which was pretty interesting in and of itself.
Good thing. What were you talking about?
Today, the topic of discussion was responsibility, which, it was pretty interesting because I'm like, junior high Jeff probably would have laughed this out of the building, but I had to make it cool a little bit. I wore a Spider-Man T-shirt to relate to the kids. It was cool, man. It was a cool conversation. We wound up having a good chat. So
that is good, man.
We're going to talk a little bit about you, brother, and what you got going on. I'm right there with you with a lot of the holistic approaches to a great many of things. Alternative medicine is quite the rage anymore. We're also going to kind of speak a little bit on something we kind of spoke on just a moment ago off air. Some of this rash of holistic doctors winding up dead. You kind of had some things you wanted to talk about. What's on your mind today, Dr. J? I know you said we want to get into something about a little bit about testosterone levels in men. We'll start with that.
Well, basically what I've been doing lately is just been doing biochemical research on how we as men age. I was going through a problem, just a health concern my own way. I wasn't healing up. I was losing muscle mass. I was fatigued. I was cranky, and I didn't really know what was going on with myself. I ended up getting rheumatoid arthritis, what they thought was rheumatoid arthritis. At least my hands swelled up, and I, basically went to the local medical doctor, so I respected that, I deal with and I work with on a daily basis with patients. And they wanted to put me on methotrexate and prednisone and all these other things that I knew, after watching people for 20 years, didn't help them out health-wise. It might have helped, get rid of their symptoms, but it really never addressed the cause of the problem, I guess. And I really didn't want to go down that road. So going through and looking at myself, I basically, changed my diet, looked at how our bodies produce the chemicals that they do, the hormone levels that they should, and if we're not, why. There's either usually something gumming the system up, that is some sort of toxicity that stops hormonal production, or there's a deficiency. We don't have the necessary materials to build that. So by doing that, I've actually gone through and managed, my rheumatoid problem, my fatigue problem, muscle mass problem, energy level problem by changing my diet, adding in some supplements, and it's been a wonderful thing.
So what would you say, I guess we're going to bring this up at some point. I was going to bring up gluten. As you know, I work with UFC Hall of Famer Pat Miletich, and he listed pretty much all of those symptoms that you listed, inflammation, joints, crankiness, and the gentleman he had spoke to said it was a reaction to the gluten he was eating, creating the inflammation, which caused all the other stuff. What were the things that you noticed that you were eating that you got rid of?
Oh, yeah, I tell you what, a lot of it is processed wheat products, For me, any refined sugars, high fructose corn sweeteners, even regular sugar or honey, something with a high glycemic index, white flour. And if you eat a pack of crackers, if you have potato soup and they put flour in that, those things increase your inflammatory markers in your bloodstream, and you can measure that.
I just ate a bowl of potato soup with crackers, brother. Just ate it.
I tell you what, watch how you feel. See if you don't feel a little sluggish later on, And what we also know is that when we eat high glycemic foods, we also produce a pro-inflammatory state that triggers aromatase, and that leads, according to the Susan G. Komen Association, on their website, to breast cancers, cervical cancers, and for men, prostate cancers. So if we can limit it, I think a lot of what it is gluten intolerance may be a part of it. Insulin resistance may be a component of it. And so for me, what I had to do is I had to go through, clean out my gut, because, there's good bacteria in your gut, and
yes.
they really don't like processed and refined carbohydrates and sugars. So I eliminated that for a period of about 6 weeks. I noticed my symptoms subsided. I went into and tried a ketogenic diet, which, man, if you have anyone who's got diabetes, anyone who's got cancer, ketogenic diets are amazing. The research out there.
Yeah, that seems to be all the rage now, too. I was reading up a bit on that. Is that similar, or it sounds a little identical or similar to kind of the paleo, just limiting the carbs, no sugar?
Yeah, we're not built for that. And with the addition of glyphosate, which Monsanto, thanks guys, who just got bought out by the biggest drug company in the world, Bayer, I think.
Bayer,
the biggest one.
German company, yeah.
German company Bayer, yeah. With Bayer and AG Farben, man, that you look into the history, they started Auschwitz, man. They were the people behind World War II, And it was labor camp primarily, but, somehow or another that kind of got twisted. So when we add this in, and glyphosate kills off natural gut bacteria and all that, we look at people who are getting pro-inflammatory situations in their gut. And if you're in the Quad Cities area and you have gut problems, I'm just going to tell you, I'm not the expert on it. There's a guy, Dr. Shaw, who is. If you have questions on it, you can you can look up Mandela Integrative Medicine. We work directly with them, and they help clean those things up, man. And it helps kids who have autism, people like me who have autoimmune disorders, people who have diabetes. And, first thing first, you probably don't have those problems because you have a lack of drugs in your diet. You probably have them because you're making choices every day that aren't helping your body,
Yeah, and it's interesting. On Joe Rogan's podcast, he's had on several times. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Really, really smart. A lot of information. And she pretty much spoke of a lot of gut flora and how that relates to, like, not just overall health, but like serotonin levels, how there's certain serotonin levels produced in the gut, not so much just in the brain.
Oh, yeah, there's more serotonin produced in your gut than there is in your brain. There's, I think, 3 times the number of nerve endings in your gut as your brain, I heard someone say. I don't know the source on that, but I would tend to believe it. You go figure, too. If your stomach or your bowels don't work normally, your brain's not going to work normally either, because I don't know about you, I've never had diarrhea or a stomach ache and felt really great about the world,
right. Right. No, absolutely. So do you stay away from the gluten completely?
Nowadays I realize that, I race bicycles and stuff that way.
Yeah.
I'm out kicking, 20 to 27-year-old kids' asses. I got second in the state of Iowa in my category awesome, with guys from 18 to, whatever. So I have the chance now where I can digest some of it, but man, I choose organic.
Sure.
That way I don't have the same reaction. I think it's because it doesn't contain glyphosate. And I usually go with that very, very limited. Most of the time, if I want carbs, I'm shooting for things like barley. It basically is a lot easier in my system. I get the carbs out of it that I want, and it's not GMO,
Sure. Yeah, there's so much to all of that. Obviously there was a big study recently that said GMO doesn't do anything, but it's just like, I mean, come on, man. That's just like the tobacco study or the sugar study. So it's just like, it's really a lot of dis and misinformation out there about, I mean, obviously the food industry wants to, the food medical industry wants to keep you, fat, dumb, and sick, I guess. So, yeah, it's very interesting. I always say stay local, stay organic, support, huge companies. Which is crazy now, because now the huger companies are starting to go in. Colgate's going in and buying up your Toms or some of these, more organic companies. But anyway, yeah, we definitely got to vote with our dollars, man. Well, the other thing you said, structure. Is that, I'm assuming you're talking skeletal structure and the effects on the nervous system and like overall health and life.
Yeah, so you were saying, structural that way.
Yeah.
Our office, that Endorph here, it's classify it as a healthcare office that way, but really it's a lifestyle office. And what we do is we have a saying, and the saying goes, you are what you eat, you move it or you lose it. And if your structure suffers, so will everything else. When we look at it, structure dictates function, and it's really easy to understand. I teach this to third graders. And just take a look at somebody who's slouching versus somebody who's standing up. Who do you think has more energy? Who's likely to sit on the couch? And if that guy sits on the couch, who's going to get heart disease? Yeah, so structure dictates function. The work of a guy who was a neurosurgeon from Norway, 1978. If you can find his book, Alf Breig is his name, Breig. Book retails right around $1,200 or so if you can find it used. He was a neurosurgeon that basically demonstrated how when you distort structure of the spine, think of a rubber band, that's like your spinal cord. So as you distort the structure of the spinal columns, more, just like a rubber band, as you stretch the cord because it's trapped in there, it's going to get thinner. And what do you think is going to happen to blood supply in that thinner structure?
Yeah.
Going to get worse, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And if you can't get blood supply to your central nervous systems, right, the job of the central nervous system is to send information from your brain to organs and then retrieve information back from organs to your brain. And if you're decreasing that function and the energy or the information isn't getting to the organs that are totally dependent on it, how are they going to function to the best of their ability?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I found fascinating from like my old college A&P class was basically everything runs off this, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system pretty much covers everything. And like you said, if you have stresses.
Oh, it doesn't pretty much. It covers everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. You want to produce testosterone. I don't care if you have all the base materials inside of you to build that hormone. If your brain can't send a message down to regulate blood supply for production, hey, man, you're missing out. If you want to put good organic food in, but your gut's messed up because there's a problem, and that was me, you're wasting your money. And think about, structurally broke down. If you're broke down and you got to work out and exercise, you're more likely to get hurt. And I don't know, you've probably seen guys out there, and I used to be kind of harsh on it, because I didn't understand when I was younger. Oh, I tried working out, it doesn't work, it just hurts. Well, I think back about those people. They had a structural issue probably. And it did probably just break them down even worse, So we help people through those things where they've been hopeless in the past and stuff that way.
I found it so very interesting as I've gotten older, Jay, is it's not even so much just a anatomical physiological thing, not to get all, new age about it. There is definitely almost a metaphysical aspect of this proper alignment, if you will. It's not just proper blood flow. In my opinion, there is also a proper energy flow, that if you have these certain issues, those energies aren't flowing right. There's blockages.
There's going to be something that happens, and it's going to affect you, if I hear what you're saying, emotionally, spiritually. Okay, and one of the guys that I study with, a guy named Deed Harrison, and you should interview this guy, man. He was like the most published researcher in biomechanics that way, especially as far as clinical correction goes. He said to a guy who was talking about vitalism, he's like, the guy was saying, we've got to have this vitalistic approach to, the energy which, is our soul that we revolve around. And Deed said, you know what, if your structure breaks down, where's your soul going to live? And the fact is, it's going to move. You got to move on. So when we look at it, I'm a spiritual being on a human journey, man, and my spirit lives inside of this body right now. And if it's not functioning well, how am I going to keep mentally, emotionally my game on point?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
a little bit of work.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, a little bit of work every day. Learning how to brush your spine, learning how to brush your diet, learning how to brush your teeth. It doesn't take a lot.
Right. Well, like I said, a little bit of education, really goes a long way. A lot of people kind of just super comfort zone and just like don't quite make the correlation of like what I'm eating, all these pills I have to pop, and my overall health. They just think, it's genetics or I'm getting old and et cetera, and kind of make excuses as to why or, blissfully fight for their right to be unhappy and miserable when, anymore there is so. I mean, this information isn't really new. Like you said, Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food has been around for a very long time.
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? And even you said it, you used the words, taking all these pills because they have to. Who told them they have to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who told them it was going to work? Who produced that research? In the last 15 years, research has been realistically pretty much bought and paid for. Once the advent of the, internet and digital publications came along, anybody can get something published. All you have to do is have enough money.
Yeah.
And the quality of research that's out there and the peer review process has been damaged in the last 10 years for sure.
Indeed.
So when we look at this, man, unless you know how to read research and go through and say, hey, man, that is not true, that's a fault in a methodological error, or their calculations are off, or they're, exaggerating the effect, or they're trying to, say that causation and correlation are the same thing. It's hard for the layperson to really read through that and get down to what's working. But the main thing is, I think, and you said it, we have $1 billion pharmacomedical industry that is pumping out, they're pumping out a message consistently with a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why people get stuck in that,
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, not to be hard on people, I just don't think we appropriately take responsibility for our own health and wellness. We almost like our view of the world, not to get into a geopolitical, we don't want to research stuff. We just want to watch 30 minutes of the news and assume we know what's going on, just because Brian Williams or whomever said it. Almost like doctors, well, you're a doctor, you must know what you're talking about. Sure, I'll take all of these with all of these side effects because, you have to know what you're talking about. And I sure don't, because I'm just lowly old me. So I'm going to, you know what I mean? Instead of empowering themselves and taking responsibility for their own health, it just becomes this kind of default mode to just all right, whatever you say.
Man. Hey, man, I was in it too that way. And it's because we hear the message so often. If diet and exercise doesn't work, we're repetitively led to believe that there's something wrong with us and that we need the help of other people, that health comes from the outside. And that mentality, allows us to be led down the primrose path and sold whatever product or whatever snake oil's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps us in a medical system which is based on disease, not on health.
Yeah.
Now,
treating, not curing.
If we look at it, treating, not curing, yeah. And, there's no cure for cancer. It's just the way it is. There's preventative measures that you can do.
Right.
Hell, man, take astaxanthin, high-level antioxidants. Susan G. Komen even puts it out there, like we were talking about earlier. But responsibility, we coach people on this every day, and it's a shift in mentality and really a shift into a more empowered, positive mood, which for many people, they hear that, they're like, oh, cliche. I'm Midwestern. You grew up here too. And in the Midwest, we're very conservative with our thoughts and our processes. We tend to stick with what's worked in the past. We're very pragmatic, and that's what keeps us alive through the harsh winters and everything else. People need that message in a way that they can digest it. For us, it's really simple. You know what? Your health is your best asset, because you will lose your house if you lose your health.
Yeah.
You will lose your job. You will lose your family. You will lose everything. Now, here's the thing. Who is going to take care of your assets better than you? The answer is no one.
Right.
So if you had one thing that was the most precious thing, wouldn't it befit you to put a little bit of time in it and find sources that you can trust? I'm not saying go out and read all this stuff, man. It's hard enough for me.
Yeah.
And I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for 20 years, But, man, I find people that I can trust.
Yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
I just run with it.
And I agree. And you said something about it becomes like a mind shift or a paradigm shift of just basically how you're going to approach your life. It's like diets. I don't believe in diets. Like, I'm going to do this for 30 days or 60 days, and then no. It has to be a lifestyle. Modify everything in your lifestyle to, achieve this certain result, as opposed to some short-term measure that you think is going to get you to a certain place, then you can kind of go back to the way it was or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? It has to be an overall
totally
lifestyle and paradigm shift, like you're saying.
And that, man, I tell you, by learning, how to race a bicycle and, becoming a state champion and going through wrecks and crashes, getting hurt and come out of it. One of the coaches that I ran into years ago, he taught me how that works, and it's very simple. And that is, if you make a short-term goal, you're going to have a short-term result.
Yeah.
Now, if you make a lifetime goal, like I said one spring, I wanted to lose 5 pounds. I'm like, Jack, I got to lose 5 pounds to get my climbing back. He's like, no, you don't. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you need to live 5 pounds lighter so you can continue for the same result you want for the rest of your life. Set your goal for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And that is where we start our big shift in our mindset. And once we set those, I've fallen off the wagon. You probably have too. We get buff because we, got a 25th reunion coming up or something. We lift, and
I sure didn't, dude. I sure didn't.
No, I tell you what, I was like, man, I'm skinny because I've been racing and stuff. I look like anorexic.
Oh, dude, you look great, man. You and Bree, you guys are always glowing, man. You guys are great, man.
What, we're happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we fall off the wagon. All of us do. Wintertime comes, man. You got to put some weight on and stuff because it's cold in the Midwest. And I'll fall off. But what Jack said, he's one of the best coaches I've ever had. He said, think about reasons bigger than yourself. And it wasn't until I had kids and I realized, man, if I don't stay healthy, I am not going to be a resource for them. I'm going to be a burden.
Yeah.
And, I help people focus on those things because, man, if it were just about us, unless we're really conceited and self-centered, which is not very acceptable in the world, we're never going to get all those things done. But if we find something bigger, whether it's the church, whether it's our community, whether it's our kids or wife or family, whether it's just wanting something better for the world, we focus on that, man, we can accomplish a heck of a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That was that was kind of not to detract of what I did today at the school, but since the thrust of the conversation was about responsibility, I literally pulled out, it was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so I pulled out two sets of 2 from each grade that didn't know each other. Like, okay, so you guys don't really know each other or ever talk, so you guys have to have lunch for the entire week this week. And at the end of the week, I'm going to have you guys either come on my podcast, or you guys have to write some kind of report or Facebook video on what you learned about this person. You know what I mean? It's taking responsibility for your community, taking responsibility for, we set these walls up too early of racist or whatever. So if we start knocking them down early, in my opinion, it just makes it a little harder for them to come up when we're older. So I don't know if that relates at all to what you were saying, but I just think overall, you got to look at things larger than yourself. You know what I mean, or larger than your own group or worldview, if you will. Yeah,
and I tell you what, man, that's social responsibility. I mean, I've got a lot of friends and stuff that way, and man, I think it's great that you're doing that because I talk with some of my friends, man, and as well as I do, as we get older, we start to harden and stuff. And I was talking with Milton, one of my friends, and he said, Jay, my uncle used to say to me, no one hates an old white man more than an old black man. And I didn't get it at the time. And I'm like, but as I've gotten older, I've looked, and the social disparity and the way that people treat each other and not knowing the person that you're dealing with.
Right.
Allows you to treat people differently. It's like you're driving in a foreign city, people probably are a little more aggressive driving because they don't know those people. But once we, build that community and we do know people, man, you realize it's all the same. We don't want the same things. We want to be loved. So teaching that to those kids is awesome, Jeff. I got to say, man, good job.
But it really felt cool to do, man, because like I said, I think it's cool to reach out to them young because like I said, all of this stuff is taught. And we just, even as adults, we buy into the differences. And it's just like, man, if those kids, if these kids sit down for this week, even though there might be disparities as far as, race or sex or whatever, they're going to find out they have way more in common. Even if one's a jock, one's a nerd, you know what I mean? They're going to tell a very similar story. And I think that's impactful and needs to happen sooner than later. You know what I mean? Because as you said, we harden as we get older. And,
I tell you, I can't.
No, go ahead.
Sooner the better. Sooner the better. Man, everybody has more in common when we sit down and we actually break bread.
Yeah. For sure. Absolutely. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but there's a couple more things I did want to hit you up because you said microbiome and health. Help me out with that one. Microbiome.
Oh, man. Microbiome and health. You want to talk microbiome? I'll hand you contact information from Joni Abbott. She does Natural News Radio, Homegrown Health, does her own podcast. Really good friends and hosts the Robert Scott Bell Show. Microbiome and health is her baby. She's the one who helped me get on to cleaning my gut up. The microbiome is its own little environment, its own microcosmic world inside of our gut, and there are good bacteria and there are good bacteria. There's no bad. It's just the right levels and stuff. There's yeasts and these other things. And, there's different opinions about how many bacterial cells there are in us, but we know that we are at least as much bacteria as we are our cells. So we're, think of it as its own little rainforest inside of us. But putting things in like glyphosate, things like antibiotics, it kills off massive amounts of those good bacteria, or at least alters the balance. And think of a rainforest, man. Think of any environment. You name me one environment that man has set foot in that operates better than when we weren't there.
Yeah.
And I'll give you my whole retirement fund, man, because I'm going to go live there. The thing is that the same amount of loss of species, extinction of species on the face of the earth, the same extinction is happening inside of us. And they're doing a gut genome sequencing right now where they're taking, people from around the world and they're seeing what's living inside of these people and how healthy are they. And they're finding people who live like in the middle of nowhere, places where man really hasn't gotten to. There's no agricultural green revolution farming, there's no corporate farming and stuff that way. And they're finding, man, that these guys have 3 times the diversity of gut bacteria than we have, and they have so much less autoimmune disorders, inflammatory disorders, psychological disorders, like depression and anxiety and things that way.
Interesting.
So Joni Abbott, Natural News Radio, I'll get your phone number, man. She would be excellent to talk on that, and she's pretty much opened my eyes because I was pretty, honestly, I was more mainstream, like, okay, there's medical, there's physical therapy. I do, chiropractic on the physical therapy realm. It's based on research. If it doesn't say so, then it's probably not true. But she opened my eyes to the ideas about the gut biome, and it's what saved me from going on methotrexate, which is it's a chemotherapy agent that they use for people with rheumatoid that shuts your immune system down and like quadruples your chances of getting lymphoma, cancer. I'm like, okay.
Well, hell, if you already had an autoimmune issue, that just locked you in, I think.
Yeah, dude, here you go, man. You got a problem? Here, we'll just throw cancer on that later.
Yeah.
Oh, but you'll feel okay. All right, man, dude. Okay, this is my only option. I even asked the doc, I'm like, is there any other option? She's like, quiet. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Gotta go search for myself, And I mean, honestly, Jeff, I was scared, dude. I was scared because I knew my health was going downhill. Bree and I, our relationship, when we've always gotten along, it wasn't going on because I didn't feel well.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to accept responsibility to find the answers. Luckily, Joni helped me with it. And, yeah.
Well, that's
what I know about it.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing, brother. And I suggest this to everybody, man. Don't be so scared to step out of that allopathic realm of like, these doctors know it all. Take responsibility for your own health because it's, even if you don't have kids, man, quality of life is just so important. It's just, we have such a short ride here, man, and why spend it,
exactly,
all hemmed up, all, I see so many people on painkillers and shit now that just can't even function and move. I'm just like, man. And then all the side effects that has, it's just like, wow, man.
Oh, yeah. Man, in these industry that make these painkillers, like fentanyl,
Yeah.
Prince just stopped earlier this year, and Moline went up to Minneapolis and died, right?
Yeah.
Fentanyl was behind his death.
Yeah.
The company that makes fentanyl stuck $500 million, or not 500 million, something like 500,000 or 500 million. I can't remember which. It's probably a million.
Probably a million.
Into stopping cannabis becoming legal in the state of Arizona as as a treatment, because they knew that if people had the ability to go that way, they're not going to be using fentanyl. And how many retirees are in Arizona, man?
I know. Yeah. They're not going to be able to stem that tide for too long. Like, that's another thing of this kind of renaissance in information, if you will. I saw a video the other day. The guy was he was a British guy. I think he had MS tremors or Parkinson's tremors, and I think he had vaped just a small amount of whatever it was. I mean, the guy was just sitting there like normal. The him before was not to be bad, but he was shaking like really, really bad. You know what I mean? He was shaking
like
terribly.
A cold skinny girl on a cold night.
You know, shaking like dice. What I was gonna say, but I mean, he was shaking, and then afterwards, he was just sitting there cool as a breeze. And you see that happening with epileptic children, you know, soldiers being treated with PTSD, fibromyalgia. I mean, it's just across the board, the medical application. So these legislators across the country are going to have to get it together, or they're going to get voted out, plain and simple, because the educated people are going to be, you know, they're going to be stemming the tide here in the next few elections.
Yeah, you know, and I can't remember who said the quote, you know, you can stand with the majority that's wrong, or you can stand with the minority that's right. And pretty soon everybody will be standing with you if you're right.
Yeah.
So even the medical community, allopaths, man, and I used to look at them and go, man, you know, I don't like what they're doing. But really, these are good people, and they're starting to wake up to it. They're starting to question, and that's a good thing. I would imagine in the next 15 years there's going to be a real shift, a paradigm shift, a treatment shift away from pharmaceuticals and towards lifestyle. And that's why we did what we did, you know, because people were dying, literally dying through a different way.
The numbers are staggering, the pharmaceutical deaths. I mean, it's even outside of recreation or what people are abusing it, like people dying who are prescribed it. It's insane, the numbers.
Oh, man, I'm a master of that stuff. You know, we know how many people are dying. The AMA reported in 2002, 250,000 confirmed deaths due to the right application of the drug. That is, you didn't take it over the counter without consulting a physician. You didn't overdose on it. You were on schedule. So we look at that. It's something that the medical doctors realize it is too, you know, and it's going to shift. But there's a lot of money flowing around there.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything else, there's a lot. Yeah, like anything else, there's a lot of lobbies, special interests around to keep us dumb on multiple levels. And medicine and treating ourselves is definitely one of them. Another big shift, and I'm going to not hurry up, but I want to, you know, don't want to keep you too long. But another big shift that you're talking about, and this is, I'm not hugely educated on it, but I'm sure you know about it, and I would love to get him on, is the finding essentially of epigenetics and how that's changing the world as far as
dude, epigenetics are massive. What's happening right now, the change in the use of petrochemicals in the Green Revolution, which started in the 1940s, 50s, to today, the use of things like DDT, the use of things like glyphosate, we won't see the actual repercussions of for up to 4 generations. Things that change us right now may not be evident for 4 generations down the line. And man, I really think that it could be a total nightmare, but it could totally just pass us by, like, you know, miss us by, you know, a foot. Hopefully, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed.
Well, the whole, I mean, if anybody doesn't know, like I said, I'm not an expert. Epigenetics is essentially turning everything over on its head as it relates to genetics, you know, because apparently only a couple % of illnesses is attributed to your genetics. So epigenetics is essentially epi meaning above, and it's essentially it's your environment, not just your environment, but your perception to your environment, which then dictates and influences your biology, which Dr. Bruce Lipton, if you read the book Biology of Belief, goes way into it. It's already read it, man. Yeah, it's game changing. It's absolutely game changing.
It is, and there's a subtle difference there with epigenetics, genotype versus phenotype. And if people out there, if you're not familiar with genotype versus phenotype, this is genetics 101. Genotype is what you're given, right? 18 million women in America have the quote breast cancer gene. Doesn't exist. It's there, but only, you know, 1 million of them get breast cancer. Why is that? And that's because of phenotype. When a gene gets exposed to an environmental factor, right, then cancer can arise, or it will respond appropriately to the situation. And that's how a gene is expressed, phenotype. So if you live in a stressful situation for a prolonged period of time, your immune system's going to shut down, and your likelihood for cancer goes up. So we have to look at our environmental triggers, because for cancer to occur, you got to have an initiator, you have to have a propagator, right. something that does that. And a lot of that is stress. It's a modern American lifestyle.
Well, if it was totally genetic, then all identical twins would get, if one twin has cancer, the other one would get one, or get it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that it doesn't happen that way, though, does it, Jeff? Yeah, so here you go, man. I want to say one thing to everybody out there, everyone. Number one, there are not 6 to 7 billion people on planet Earth because you are broken or genetically faltered. We're here because we're built, we're rugged, we're durable. We are built to survive. All you have to do is clean the trash up out of the house, wipe the counter down, and put the right food on it, and keep your butt moving, and your life will be a heck of a lot different. And the only people who haven't experienced this are the people who just haven't done it long enough. Little bits of input will deliver that to you. So just make those changes, small, little bit.
Yep. And like I said, it absolutely influences the quality of life. Something you mentioned, and this is kind of systemic throughout all my readings as far as it relates to all these different diseases, the root, oftentimes, and we kind of have heard it's oftentimes our diet, the root of some of these causes is inflammation. Tell us what exactly inflammation is, and certain things, like we said, food, other things that create it, and how it affects our body.
Inflammation is basically the process that your body goes through to deal with a certain environmental factor. Now, if we work out, we get inflamed. We produce inflammatory factors, which then trigger our body to grow stronger, right? If you eat a lot of sugar or drink alcohol, which is a simple sugar, your body can get inflamed. Now, inflammation in a joint or any other tissue could be referred to as an itis. If you have tendinitis, inflammation of a tendon, bursitis, bursal, inflammation. So inflammation is something that is our body's primary mode of immune system response to an invading organism or to an injury, and we shouldn't suppress it. We look at the anti-inflammatory classification of drugs, the NSAIDs, shuts down inflammation. You know what? That shuts down your immune system and what your body's trying to do. And by taking those and altering the body's natural process, we expose ourselves to more problems. Now, mitigating inflammation, right? If you want to mitigate or reduce it naturally without shutting your system off through chemotherapy, which is what Tylenol and Advil and Motrin is, you can do things such as using antioxidants, right? That said, it'll be a lot more effective for you in the long run. The side effects are much lower. So you could do something like astaxanthin, which 6 milligrams twice a day is going to help reduce free radical production, because when we have inflammation, it creates something that they call active oxygen species, which then produces free radicals, and that damages cells and kills tissue. Well, something like astaxanthin will actually stop that. So will pomegranate. And you don't have to eat the fruit, because I don't know about you, if pomegranates
aren't tough, ripe, man. It's
they're
tough.
Nasty.
It's real strong. It's tart. It's really,
Yeah, you have to have a flavor for it. So there's a pill, and it's cheap. We can use those, and we can mitigate the inflammation. Now, for what I see people using it in, we get people on natural anti-inflammatories. For me, with arthritis, potent combination: MSM, Arnica boswellia, and turmeric. Mix those three with astaxanthin and pomegranate, you've got something that will help your body by giving it the materials it needs to go through its own process. You don't need to add anything artificial or chemical in. You don't have to do that. You may want to take some things out, like inflammatory items in your diet. Those would be things like gluten, wheat, refined sugars and starches. It might be something like alcohol. And it might be something, like me, I love, smoked sausage. It could be something like a processed meat, you know. So get the trash out, provide your body with the things it needs, the antioxidants.
Do you do that nitrate-free smoked sausage, or do you just go for it?
Man, I tell you what, we all have to have our bad little.
That's yours.
if that sausage is good, and like they've got the stuff at Hy-Vee, oh man, it is awesome. I'll use it. I'll do it sparingly, right?
Right. That's awesome.
And that's just it. Life's for living, man. We gotta have
I'm with
fun,
you. You can't get out of life alive, man. But at the end of the day, still, you want to have a quality of life. And like you said, if you have kids, you don't want to be all hemmed up all day. You know what I mean? Especially if you're young. People are getting. I see kids people young, man, 4 years old, really, dealing with a lot of serious health problems that really limits their mobility and ability to do stuff. So it's, got to get on top of it, man. Sooner than later. You don't want to be calling in the bomb squad after it's already gone off. So.
No, man. And that's one of the things is, why would you call the bomb squad when the bomb already went off? Why would you call, if you have a crisis, there's a time and a place, man. If somebody has like a major trauma, all right, you're going to call the ambulance. If the house is on fire, you call the fire department. Right. But you don't call the fire department on Monday to go, hey, come and prevent fire from happening again, because the only tools they have are pickaxes and fire hoses. Yeah. Man, that's the same as the medical community. When you have a heart attack, they saved you. Don't go back to have them treat you to prevent it from coming back, because all they have is drugs and surgery, pickaxes and fire hoses. Yeah, exactly. I can produce a study. I can make this study. I know it will work 100 times out of 100 times, and that is, I'll come in and I'll prevent heart disease by giving you a pill to control cholesterol, and then a blood thinner, and whatever you want to, whether it's a Plavix or a warfarin, and you're not going to die of a heart attack. You'll die of something else. You'll die younger. And that's the same thing as me saying I can prevent house fires coming in once a day, wetting everything down. I'm successful because the parameter of my study said you're not going to die of a heart attack. It cares less whether you have the whole house rotten from the inside out. Right? Right. And that's why these studies now, even they've said, you can't manage by numbers with cholesterol. Cholesterol doesn't have anything to do with it. Body produces the right amount. It produces the amount according to your lifestyle. Well,
and that's the other. We kind of run out of time a little bit, but the statin drugs and that correlation with Alzheimer's, because cholesterol has been so demonized. It's now they're having cholesterol in their brains depleted.
Dude, I eat 3 whole eggs a day. I'm a man. It's just for the cholesterol. Right. And if you want a big one, look into this one, Jeff. Look into the use of proton pump inhibitors, Protonics, Tagamet, those acid relievers, right? 40% increase in dementia in people who use those.
Really?
Yeah, man. It's messing with the central nervous system's connection between your brain and your gut, and people are going crazy. And I don't know if you've watched anybody with Alzheimer's, man. That is a nightmare, man. I would just as soon, if I got that somebody just, hey, Dad, I love you, but we're going to go out into the woods. You're going to take a walk, and you ain't coming back.
You ain't coming back. Yeah, man.
Man, put me down, man. Honestly, that way.
I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. That's no way to live, man. Especially with kids. Like you don't want, like you said, to be a burden, and you definitely don't want to see your kids. You'd see your kids see you just deteriorate in that fashion. Yeah. It's no way to live. Well, cool, brother.
Well, hey, man. Yeah, we could talk forever that way. I know you got a limited amount of space and stuff. So if you ever want to talk again, man, let me know. And I tell you what, you gotta hook up with Joni and with Dr. Shaw. Those guys will give you on gut biome and stuff that way, man.
Okay, I wrote down Deed Harrison, Dr. Shaw. Okay, because you had said something about Deed Harrison wrote a book too. Yeah, we were going to get a little bit into the holistic.
Deed Harrison wrote.
He what?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Deed Harrison's written like 7 books, man, and has like 150 peer-reviewed articles out there.
I will definitely check it out. And throw out any social networking stuff or any of your. I see you're adding a little bit more content to your Elite Health Systems, and you have a website. Shout that out.
Website. www.hwcc1.com, and we are Elite Health Systems on Facebook.
Well, thank you so much, man. This has been Dr. J Johannsen on a very informative. Like I said, we're going to have you back on, brother, because these kind of conversations, excuse me, there's so many layers to it. There's so much to get into it about. But I appreciate your time, my friend. Continued success, Dr. J Johannsen, the Dr. J Wellness Center, right here on It's Me Speaking to You. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Brother J. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
All right. Peace and love, everybody. Stay tuned. There will be more.